I guess.
Why are you you're making a new message?
No, I just,
Okay,
I'm reading it.
there you go.
Oh, just touch that, huh?
No, just, I clicked away from the box.
Oh, I see.
So anybody know anybody affected by what happened in Milwaukee over the weekend?
Most of my coworkers have
Most of your
terrible flooding.
coworkers?
Yeah, or a good portion of them. Yeah, pretty
That's
bad.
horrible.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who live out in like West Dallas and stuff, and they got some pretty bad flooding. I don't know if anyone had feet of water in their basement or anything like that, except for one person I know. But I don't know what the background is on
Yeah,
that.
I know somebody in West Dallas area, and they had 3 or 4 feet, and their car is totaled.
Terrible.
Yes. I grew up in the West Dallas area, and like when they were showing pictures of the cars floating down the streets, I'm like, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
How's your dog doing? He's doing pretty good. Nothing since the last incident, so that's good.
What's wrong with your pooch?
Occasionally he has seizures,
Oh, that's thanks to inbreeding.
but it's not, for, when he first started having them, we put him on medication.
Where'd you get the pup from?
He was a rescue. He came from Tennessee.
That says it all.
But he was so lethargic on the meds that we took him off, and now he has, and they said, you know, the meds won't cure it, it will just lessen them happening, so
Hey Jared, how's it going?
we took him off, and he maybe has seizures once or twice a year now, but there's not much we can do other than.
Go right ahead.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, just, yeah, we just like stay by him and tell him it's okay, it's gonna be okay, and then, you know, he gets a little stiff in his hind legs after the seizure for a day or two, but I'm assuming that's because his entire body is just tensing up.
I have a dog that's too long. She's a genetic mess. And, she goes to a chiropractor,
Oh, okay.
and that adjustment it works wonders.
You go to Brad, the chiropractor?
No, it's a special doggy chiropractor.
Because I know that the, Brad, Wellness Chiropractic, he does do veterinary chiropractic, like I think he.
So,
Oh,
sorry to interrupt you
sorry.
guys, but it is 5:30, and
Sorry.
since we have all current members of the policy board here, as well as an up-and-coming one in the form of David, I'm going to call this meeting to order. All right. First thing on the agenda is public comment. We have 10 minutes, and if there's anyone who's interested in speaking, you can take your turn at the stand now. We ask that you'd fill out a card if you are interested in speaking. No? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to our first item on the agenda, which is the student and parents' rights policy discussion. That's policy 5780. We talked about this. Oh, hi, Craig. We talked about this some last month, and the direction that we gave to Jared and administration was to kind of deinterlace the student elements from the parent elements, so it's a little bit clearer. So we have an updated version of that. Does anyone have any immediate thoughts? Lauren? Tammy?
No, I read through it, I was happy with it, but this says students and parents' rights, so it does look like it has a section clarifying parents'
Mhm.
rights. But this is the students, there's not gonna be a separate one, right? We're just dividing it like
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I just
yeah.
wanted to make
So
sure.
it has the student rights statement and then it has the parental rights statement on there. Look at you, Lauren?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well. Jared, do you have any thoughts or anything further to bring with policy 5780, parents and students' rights?
No, I just wanted to make sure that you guys were all comfortable with the language that we put in there. With the latest Supreme Court ruling, I think that was the biggest kind of discussion point from that. And I do know that we have Renee here, should you guys have any other questions. But the best thing that I thought that comes from this
Mhm.
is, for a long time, our policies have enumerated a number of parent rights, right?
Mhm.
This just aligns them in one spot.
Okay.
Because what we did is we tried to, for as many of those parental rights that we named, we wanted to list the policy that they also
Mhm.
show up in. And so we did that within
Yep,
that,
I do see that.
within that, because, it's not necessarily that it's new. It's just,
Mhm.
trying to outline it in
It's centralized.
a centralized
Yeah.
spot.
I think that's great. I think it does its job. I think it's a little bit clearer, like we talked about last time, is really great. And it's nice to see the updated stuff from the Mohammed B. Taylor case. All right. If we don't have any further comments on policy 5780, we can move on to policy 2240, which we had some updates on last month. Do we have any new updates on that, Jared?
No, nothing new on that one.
Okay, gotcha. Were you able to connect with Renee about the language about teacher expression of personal opinion in controversial issues?
Yeah, so Renee, is she on? Renee, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Renee?
I can. Yeah,
I
can you
can't
hear me?
you. Okay. Hang on.
Jared, can you hear me? Maybe not.
There we go.
I'm not quite sure how to get her to be able to.
It's okay. I will.
Speakerphone?
Yeah, well, I will, if she can hear me.
I can.
And I know we're moving to different new systems, so, I will try to resonate the best I can for the connection.
Mhm.
But just like in our parental right policy where we put the Muhammad versus Taylor in there, we also made a connection to this policy. Basically sharing with our parents, like the first and foremost thing that you need to understand is that we have this policy of controversial issues in the classroom, right? We're going to be outlining again a little bit more for our staff. What does that mean, right? What does that look like? And those are the places where we're going to try to get out as much information to parents on the curriculum side and that parental right policy so that they can make informed decisions on whether or not they want to opt out or not. The same thing we're trying to do around just having not only that from the instructional standpoint, but having things up and around the room that may be controversial, and those kind of things. Making sure that that is not coming from a standpoint of like any personal belief that is connected to the curriculum, and that if there are those things there, that we make people aware of that and the reason for and the connectedness to the curriculum. So I think those two new policies are really kind of interrelated on that one line item, right?
Sure.
And those are the things that we wanted to make sure that we tried to communicate out.
Definitely. And I can certainly appreciate that. In talking with members of the community since the last meeting, I did hear a lot of resonance with some of the concerns that I brought up last time regarding the kind of inherent power balance between a student and a teacher. And so I wanted to do some research to see about the viability of having, staying away from talking about personal opinions when it comes to controversial issues, and specifically to controversial issues. And I did find that there's a variety of different approaches to that in the surrounding areas. The two that I would point to specifically in the policy samples that I've had attached here would be the McGuanago and the Merton policies. In the McGuanago policy, it states, in the discussion of any controversial issue in the classroom or in the course of professional duties, a teacher may not express his/her personal opinion. And then in the Merton policy sample, very similarly, it says, in the discussion of any controversial in the classroom or in the course of professional duties, a teacher may not express a personal opinion. So there is some, at least precedent for that in the surrounding areas. I was wondering if the committee would be interested in amending the language of 2240 on that second page, instead of the language about specifying that it's a personal opinion or a personal belief, amending it to refraining, similar to the language that we have here in the Merton and McGuanago
I would,
policies.
yeah, I heard the same kind of things from people in the community.
Gotcha.
So that supports the decision to change it.
Thank you. Tammy, you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I would be comfortable with changing that.
Gotcha. So then could we make that an action item to replace the, I guess, green and red text in that paragraph, the paragraph that begins in the discussion of any controversial issue in the classroom? Replace that with, I think the Merton one lines up a little bit closer. Yeah.
I do have a question if we went over the AG for controversial issues already, or if there's not one created, just because I did look at the Oconomowoc.
Yeah.
Oconomowoc, the AG sample, and I
Mhm.
thought that was.
Yes, and that's what I was going to bring up next. And we've already had some discussion with Renee about some other supplemental materials, like the request for opt-out that is coming out of the Mahmoud v. Taylor case.
Mahmoud, right?
And, I think that goes nicely. So I'm not saying that we should necessarily adopt the one that we've got here from Oconomowoc wholesale. At the very least, you would want to change the header.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, just like some of the other policies that you're going to be doing work on, for instance, Neola, how they set up like our nursing, protocols. They have the policy lined up as a policy that says we will have an administrative guideline for nursing protocols, and then a space under AGs to do nursing protocols. Our old policy had it all as one thing, right?
Okay.
So I agree with you that we are going to have some administrative guidelines that are going to come after some of these policies that we're putting in place. My biggest thrust right now is to let's get the policy in place. And then some of those other pieces, like you said about, Oconomowoc and how they address it with staff and everything else, those have to come next. But at least we have a good, strong policy that we can
Yes.
start with, right? That we didn't necessarily have, or we had one, but it didn't speak to some of the recent educational reforms that are taking place across the nation. And we want to make sure that we take those and current law and everything else, make sure we have a solid policy, and then start putting in those other, those administrative guidelines.
Okay.
So I agree with you, Tammy. The question is, for that statement, do we want that statement to show up in an administrative guideline, or to strengthen the policy, or do we want it to be in the policy and maybe reiterated?
This is not pertaining to any statement. It was just pertaining to the attachment that was provided.
You just saw it, right?
Yes,
You said, I like that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely.
no specific statement, just
Yeah.
that the guideline was attached.
Yep, I thought it was useful. That's why I attached it. In the process of my other research, I was like, oh yeah, this is a great example. So that's definitely something to pull there. And then really quick, Lynn, the specific language for that action item, the change to 2240, it's the second I guess, proper paragraph of the second page of 2240, in the discussion of any controversial issue, it would read, in the discussion of any controversial issue in the classroom or in the course of professional duties, a teacher may not express a personal opinion. And any further thoughts on 2240, or is it looking good?
It's good as is.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
Answered my question because I noticed the Oconomowoc one myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good to get a look down the line, and I figure throw it in there. That way you can refer back to it. It's way easier than me trying to look for it later on. You know, sometimes you lose things. All right. So with that being done, we're moving on to item C, which is Neola Policies 8000, Group 4. We have 4 policies here. They are epidemics and pandemics, reporting accidents, personal protective equipment during epidemic events, and pediculosis, head lice. Any thoughts from anyone right off the bat?
Oh, yeah. So
Mhm.
masking, has harms related to it for children and no evidence-based benefits. I looked up a more recent study, since we now have data from masking children. And
I'm sorry, Lori, what policy?
8540.
8540,
Okay.
yeah, PPE, the
Okay.
PPE policy,
0.01.
right.
Mhm.
So in a June 2025 study published in the Pediatric Respiratory Review on masking children, their conclusion is there's a lack of robust evidence of benefit for masking children to reduce transmission of SARS-CoV-2 and other respiratory viruses. In this review, we have, however, identified multiple studies, both randomized and observational, which report that masking may lead to a variety of harms in children of all ages. Recommendations for masking children therefore fail the most basic harm-benefit analysis. The current evidence does not support the recommendation for masks for children. So that's
I'm with Lori. I'm not comfortable with anybody but the parent having authority to mask their children. Jared? It just says the superintendent may incorporate. That's what I was
Okay,
thinking.
okay. I will tell you that I would be working with our medical team, right? We have a physician here in town that we contract with, right, for medical advice. And we also have our nursing services staff. I would be looking to them. I'm not a medical expert. I don't know what's important to do with masking, not masking, whatever.
I mean, yeah, but
They're the
historically,
ones
the
who I would
medical
go to.
profession didn't follow the data that was coming out during
Right.
COVID, showing that it was harmful to children to keep them in the same mask all day. No offense to any of your medical professionals, but I'm assuming it wasn't coming from up top down to them so they could make the appropriate changes.
Yeah, they didn't even, I mean, I was there during 2021 when they were masking our children. I was at the school board meetings and explaining, I have asthma, my grandchildren have asthma. I was explaining the harms of airway remodeling because the masks were causing panic attacks, which trigger asthma attacks and cause long-term airway remodeling in children with asthma. They didn't care. They didn't listen. Even the nurse practitioner that called in, she had no interest in any of those facts. And those facts came from the Canadian government was my source for the airway remodeling because they're much more detailed on that. So I have very little trust for the local experts on this topic. It's way too politicized. And so I fall heavily on the side of don't force our kids to wear masks.
And so what would your recommendation be for an alteration to policy 8450?
My minimum recommendation would be that the parents get to decide whether or not we mask our children. That's the minimum recommendation.
Okay.
I'll let you guys decide the rest.
And then, so, well, and then help me hash this out then. Because I totally hear where you're coming from, and I think we're still seeing some of the repercussions of, more on like a psychological education side, I think we're seeing the repercussions of young children wearing masks,
And they're
not
detailed in
seeing
this study.
words, not seeing teachers forming words. It really does have an impact on student learning.
Right.
But if we are going to change the policy, we'll have to come up with a realistic alternative for that. So we can have a parent decide how their child, how their child responds to these things. But that becomes more complicated when you have parents with differing views, which I think was part of what was going on in 2020 and 2021. It was a pretty tense time for
It's
everyone.
more of, and there's no right answer to this. The right answer is you are the elected officials, right? And you are in charge of making the call. But basically how I shared that with our board at the time that we were going through that, because I was a superintendent in the school district who went through similar things, right? Is I said this: do we want to take a public health standpoint within our public schools on a macro view or on the micro view? And I said, let's take it away from COVID, because that everybody's like up in arms about right now. Let's put it to something we can have a logical discussion around, and then tell me how you feel. Let's pick head lice. Okay. Do you want me to have policy that says that if your child has head lice and is untreated, that it doesn't make a difference? They can come here with head lice anyway, because you as the parent decide the health of your child.
I think that's a different scenario
It's
because
not.
they're actually infected, and the scenario in a pandemic, it is
Prophylactic.
stopping the spread,
Right.
essentially.
It could be a prophylactic or not, we don't know, right? The conversation still had to become more of a macro or micro level. And what I'm saying is, do we want to enact policies that are for the good of all or the good of the one? And then we have to have the all have to react to that. Because I could say on the micro level, listen, your child has head lice, and if you don't want to medicate them, that's fine, and it's up to you. But I can't have them come here until they don't have active head lice, right? So I could put it on that
Right,
part of
but
the COVID
that child is
discussion.
actively infected.
So
I know.
if that's
that's a
the,
different scenario.
But what I'm saying is there were parents who said, like, I don't care if my child is sick, and I don't even care if they have COVID or not. I'm going to send them to school.
Right,
That's a
but
different
we
issue.
also
Yeah.
ran into the scenario after the students were back at school, is the district allowed students that were vaccinated to come to school the day after they went home sick, but students that were not vaccinated had to stay out.
I know a
14
whole
days.
bunch of crazy stuff happened. I
Okay,
don't want to
so
relitigate
I think
what happened before.
allowing
I
any-
just want to know
I think it
what
should-
angle or where you guys.
yeah, let me point out the specific language here that I think is where the contention
Carl
is found.
was holding.
Oh, you were? Oh, go ahead.
I
Carl.
just want to know who the doctor is that you're referring to.
Who do we-
Dr. Sullivan.
Dr. Michael Sullivan is who we continue
Okay,
to.
very good.
Okay, I didn't even know exactly which one it was. So that's why this is under Sarah's ball of wax. So
So the
Okay.
starting section, the place where I would pull this out initially is in the second paragraph. It says the superintendent. That's on you, I suppose. But it may be required. You may incorporate requirements for the use of personal protective equipment, which may include requirements that all staff, volunteers, and visitors, including vendors, wear appropriate PPE. So it's not that those who are sick wear it, but that all people, no matter what, wear it. And I think that's where the issue comes in, when it's saying whether or not you're sick, you have to wear this thing all the time.
right.
And so with the head lice thing, everyone is different, like you're saying, everyone's got different opinions. But I think that the head lice position that you're putting out there is a lot more, I think that's much more the majority view. If you're sick, you don't go to school. That's where most people fall.
Right, but what I'm saying is like, we could say to them, if you have head lice and you're not treating it, right?
You can't come to school until you don't have head lice.
Right,
Yeah.
and or you have to wear this hair, the cover, right, to cover it so that you're not having lice spread out. That's what a mask is, so other,
Well, we're talking about healthy children, not sick children.
The issue is that healthy children and healthy people in general were
Right,
being
and
made to wear masks.
generally, if my child goes to the nurse and they have a fever or other triggers, it doesn't matter if I want my child in school or not, the nurse is gonna say, you need
You need to
to
go
pick your child up, they are
Mhm.
too ill for school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not, or we can put them in a face covering so their sickness doesn't spread, that's not a viable option right now.
I'm just saying that for a long time, right, schools have enacted medical care for the masses, right? Even though it may have been against the will of an individual as a public precautionary. How much you want to lean into that is up to you as a governing board, right?
What,
And this is an instance of that byproduct, which is to say, do we want to tell people, I'm sorry, whether you agree with it or not, we're gonna have you masked because of this or not, right? And that's really what it comes down to. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's you as a governing board have to decide where's that line of the difference between the individual and the masses and what you want to ask us to do on your behalf.
All right, Craig?
I would propose the following sentence in that second paragraph to state something to the effect of before the board will approve such use of PPE prior to the superintendent incorporating those requirements or something of that nature. I'm not sure what the proper wording should be, but
well, I think you're putting the gloves, gowns, shoe coverings, all that in the same category, which have no arms attached to them at all. So we need to split that off with the face. I mean, even if you wear a face shield, there's no arms associated, known associated arms with a face shield, just with the mask. So you need to split that off.
the issue is, we had one such pandemic recently that's in everybody's forefront of mind, where the masks, that form of PPE is debated that was effective or not. Who's to say the next round of pandemic that we do face, it could be or could not be. We don't know. We don't know what situation we're going to be faced with, but I think stating something to the effect upon approval of the board might make us be able to get together as a board and have a further discussion about that, about the merits of PPE in that particular case. It would be on a case-by-case basis.
Craig, what I think I'm hearing you say is you would rather just have language in there that says before administration goes on whatever journey, we're not going to approve language that says only this or only this. We're approving language that says, when it comes to this, you're gonna check in with the board on that issue.
Right.
If it's a macro issue.
Yes.
I see wisdom in that, because just like you said, you don't know what pandemic may be coming down the road. It may be totally different in aspect, and I think your point is a really valid one, but I think we need to leave it open so that we can make a decision when it happens based on knowledge that we have, maybe more knowledge than we have now about something.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the cloth masks or anything you get from an Ace Hardware, those are not N95 masks. Those do not protect appropriately.
No.
Okay, so they're really just to make people feel good. They used face coverings during the Spanish flu. All the reports coming back show that that was a hindrance to people getting over the Spanish flu. The same is true for COVID now that they're going over the research. People that heavily wore masks, especially driving alone in their car or anytime they were not at home, it actually hindered their ability to recuperate from being ill. It didn't really help it. And I guess I agree with the board getting involved, but why do we need a valid medical excuse? That's,
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
it says individuals with a valid medical reason do not have to wear a mask, and then what do you do with those students in the school building that are not wearing a mask? Are they among the general population then, or are they isolated and excluded from the rest of their peers because they have a medical exemption?
And the other thing is that we're not preventing a parent from sending their children to school in masks. That's a parental decision, as far as I'm concerned.
It's about the mandating of something over parental rights. You know, and it does go on. I think what you said is a really great start. First of all, this should be something that is a collaboration with the board, because that's where a decision like this belongs anyways. But it goes on to talk about some other issues. At the end of page 1, you have a paragraph that talks about how if there is no exception that is applicable and a student is not wearing PPE, they'll be subject to disciplinary action. I would say that, and again, we're kind of throwing those out there. I will get these condensed for you, Lynn, don't worry. I'll reiterate them. I would say that instead of it saying students shall be subject to disciplinary actions, I would say students shall be sent home or not be allowed on the
That's a
premises.
disciplinary action possibly.
Yeah, I mean, but
I-
disciplinary
the
action
reason
also includes suspension or detention or other forms of discipline that I think might not be
Yeah,
appropriate for
so-
that sort of
There's
situation.
So we can use something like removal, right? Which is a disciplinary action, and instead of being generic and saying a disciplinary action,
Yeah.
what we're really talking about there is you're gonna be subject to removal, which is a disciplinary action.
Yeah.
Right? Instead, you can say maybe subject to removal,
Mhm.
in accordance with student code of conduct, you know, that kind of stuff. Because their refusal is leading to a possible removal.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's a complicated thing. It was such an interesting time. Such an interesting time. I think it's complicated because I think that, you know, in any situation where there's social unrest, you have people who are approaching it from many different directions. But I think that we should be very cautious to, you know, to tell students that they are being reprimanded for their beliefs or things like that. And that's where the difficulty comes in with a disciplinary action at a time
Yeah,
such as that. And again, if this
It's a
was
reprimand, it's more of a consequence, which is,
A reprimand.
a consequence is worse than a reprimand. A reprimand is a verbal, it is a verbal statement.
Go
And a
ahead.
consequences. Shut something
Just keep in mind, you know, we go through another pandemic in another 100 years or so from now. If it happens within the next 100 years, this particular policy is going to be revised probably multiple times like it was years ago, like recently in the past.
Yeah.
It's, you know, this is a starting point. It's not,
well,
it's likely not going to be the final determinant during a pandemic.
it won't.
So what about an opt-out for a parent? Is there an opt-out option for a parent that believes that this is causing harm? Because this argument is not going away. There are multiple studies coming out of the harms mentally and physically that have been caused by masking our children.
Yeah.
And so of course you'll have the dueling studies coming out, right?
Mhm.
It's not going away, it's not going to change. Parents need the option to protect their children how they see fit, whether it's covering their face with a mask or making sure their faces are not covered with a mask. So what if we put an opt-out in there for parents?
So I would say, you know, I agree with what Craig said around trying to make sure that the policy continues to guide and keep you involved, because no matter what we have for a policy, and we all found this out, there are going to be community members when it gets to that level of threat and or engagement, public threat, medical threat, social threat, all that. You will have people in droves from our community and other places coming together to talk about this issue. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull out the policy, right? Second thing that administration is going to do is get the board leadership and the board on board and say, hey, we just want you to know, this is what we're hearing. These are the things that are coming out. Currently, we have this. Is this the way you want us to proceed?
We just did this with controversial issues policy, and it meets all of the criteria that you just listed, and we didn't kick that can down the road. So now we're shying away from making a policy because it's too controversial?
No, I don't think that's what he's saying.
I'm not saying kick it down the road. I'm saying like, make sure that you ensure, right, that there's some kind of mechanism that says before the administration acts on a global level like that, that we're incorporating the board in that discussion point was, I think, very good of what Craig was saying.
I'd be comfortable with that as long as we remove the base coverings line. And if the board wants to put one back in,
Yeah.
back down the road, that's fine.
Yeah. Just know, I don't have a personal stake in having the discussion of masking or unmasking.
Right.
Right, I believe that this board we will do whatever this board wants in regard to that.
I will say, Lori, by striking the word face coverings, the statement still reads PPE, you know, and then it gives a suggestion of disposable gloves, gowns, shoe
Right.
coverings, or other PPE. Other PPE appropriate. It still doesn't eliminate the possibility
Well,
that face coverings could be used. by
We need
eliminating that one.
we need to be very clear about that guidance if that's what we decide.
It's like if they told everyone that they had to carry around a voodoo doll is what Lori is the perspective that Lori has here is
Right.
that you shouldn't have face covering included there because the kinds of face coverings during the 2020 situation were not effective, at least some of them. I remember when they said that you can't wear them for smoke because the smoke particles are too small and they'll just fit through the mask.
Well, it's not.
I totally-
that, though. It's the harms caused by the face covering.
Oh, yeah.
The speech problems, everything listed in this and many other studies. We know this, we're still dealing with this, just look at the grades. It's not just that we need a better mask. They do have better masks. But the problem is that it's not just about the breathing. It's about the harms caused to children by making them wear face coverings that people can't see through.
I don't necessarily disagree with the points that you're trying to make, Lori. I'm just trying to get us to a point where we can move forward with a policy that the board is comfortable with. And I understand that you have an aversion to face coverings. Would you prefer that it specifically says something of no, call out face coverings as something that we would exclude as PPE? Or is it something that you would strike through and move forward, be comfortable moving forward with allowing PPE as indicated there? And allow it to be a further discussion in the future.
Right, or you can say allow PPE, which there's many reasons to allow PPE. I mean, we want our medical staff gloving for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, I get what you're saying. But is the question still around more, what we were talking around like the parental choice on masking? Right?
This policy is specific for PPE as it pertains to pandemic or epidemics, right?
Sure.
Yeah, 8420 is generally about epidemics and pandemics.
8450?
8450 is
Okay.
specifically about PPE. 8420 is about generally epidemics and pandemics. And then you have reporting accidents and head lice, which are kind of in a separate category because they're not epidemic pandemic events. So I would say it sounds like there's a lot more that people would like to do as far as altering 8450 is concerned. So really quick, let's look at the 8000 policy group. 8442 is reporting accidents. I just want to move these because it might be a little bit easier if we pare down what we have here. Does anyone have any comments on reporting accidents, or does that look good?
Looks good.
It looks good to me too. Anyone have any comments on 8451, the head lice discussion?
No.
Because that one looks fine to me as well. Okay, then let's look really quick at 8420, then we'll do 8450, and then we'll zero in on it and we'll see where we get there. At least that way we're out of the way. So 8420 is very broadly about epidemics and pandemics. And it reads, partway down that first paragraph, to address epidemics and pandemics, the superintendent shall develop an epidemic pandemic plan in coordination with local government and law enforcement officials. The epidemic pandemic plan may be developed in accordance with the plan developed pursuant to policy 8405, environmental health and safety program.
And this is where I agree with Craig. That should not just stop with the superintendent.
It should say the board shall develop and then the superintendent shall implement.
Well, or
The board and the super.
the superintendent shall develop and have the board's approval of, because I don't know that you guys are gonna do the work I mean,
I see what you're saying.
matter of fact, in the best world, it would say the superintendent or their designee, right? Because I most likely be looking to Sarah and our medical team, hey, develop a plan, let's bring it to the board for approval. That's what I would like it to say, is something that gives us the ability to make a plan, bring it to your approval before implementation. That's, I think, is the key part, because I think what happened in many, many school districts is like even some local public health official decided they were going to take over the school district's portion of the medical stuff, and they started creating policies, right? And they inserted themselves into schools at some point. I'm not saying that happened here or anywhere else necessarily specifically. I'm saying there were places where that happened.
Well, the
And-
health department here released all of the vaccine information to the district for children that were vaccinated.
Okay, again, I wasn't here, but what I want to understand is that, I want you to understand is that I'd like us to create something just like we do for anything else, bring it to you and say, here's the problem, here's the plan that we're putting together, here's the resources that we took into effect, here's the research, here's everything that we did. Will you approve of this? It gives you some time to go through and look at that, right? And then put an answer back out.
Right, procedurally, the board will weigh in on that particular policy at that time as well. Procedurally, the board's going to look at that plan as well, as long as the language is in there.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of the rough guidance that we're going to go off of.
Yeah.
This is the policy in place.
So what we would want to do then is we would want to, again, we're looking at the broader policy than the narrower policy. On policy 8420, we would want to add to the end of the first paragraph, all epidemic pandemic plans shall be subject to final board approval.
All right, and we should add superintendent or
his
designee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the same under where it's the green there, where it says the superintendent shall create administrative guidelines. The superintendent or their designee shall create administrative guidelines in accordance.
Yeah.
What do you think, Laurie?
On
That all right?
8420 is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's go into 8450 because that lays a little bit more of the groundwork, and now we can dig into 8450, which is going to take a little bit more of it's going to take a little bit more time. I figure we'll get those out of the way so we know this is the last thing we got on the docket, and now we can look over this paragraph by paragraph as needed. So yeah, I would say anywhere where it says superintendent, we should add or their designee right off the bat. May incorporate requirements for the use of personal protective equipment, which may include requirements that I would take the word all out, that school staff, volunteers, and visitors wear appropriate PPE. And I mean, we can take out the parenthetical there and just leave it at PPE if you would like to.
If you're not excluding face coverings, I'm not okay with it. This is not gonna change.
So I don't know exactly how we would go about that. I don't know that it's the best approach to specify the face covering stipulation in policy. I guess because this is a personal protective equipment policy, we could put something in there. How would you like to incorporate that into this policy?
I would strike face coverings at the front and put excluding face coverings at the back end of that sentence. Or face masks.
Yeah.
Transparent shields
Mm-hmm.
don't cause any harm. I don't think anyone argues with that. But face masks cause harm.
So
That's the one I have a problem with.
excluding opaque face coverings.
Excluding masks.
Mm-hmm. Anything that's
Everybody knows
tightly
what a
around
mask
the,
is.
yeah.
It covers your whole face, it
Sure.
keeps you from breathing
Mhm.
fully.
Okay.
A shield, face shields were widely used during the pandemic, even though they were banned from being used in this and other schools, with no problems at all,
Mhm.
right? But that's transparent, it doesn't come with any of the harms that face masks come with.
Tammy, would you be comfortable with that?
I agree with Lori. Everything's Lori's saying, I am totally on board with you. I was wondering if we could maybe, I think that there needs to be an adjustment in the last second sentence of the second paragraph. For individuals with valid medical, you should add developmental here so that it mirrors 8420. Because on 8420, it says medical or developmental.
I agree.
Yeah, and
So-
it even says it later on in the policy as well. So yeah, I think that would be good.
Um,
I'm sorry, where is this?
the
Second
last
paragraph.
sentence in the second paragraph where it says a valid medical, if it could be medical or developmental, as it states in 8420.
Yeah.
So,
It's the fifth line down, and this sentence starts with individuals with valid medical. And you
if
would,
I could, rob a little bit of something from, our parental rights policy.
mhm.
And let me see if I can scroll down to the exact language. I'm looking for the language, and it actually comes out of Muhammad v. Taylor. Where we use that? Where is it? Here. It says the WSD. I'll say what it says in case you guys aren't there. WSD may refrain from any activities that threaten or undermine religious beliefs of parents, which instill the children from imposing children a set of values, beliefs hostile to the parent religious beliefs. And it says, let's see here. It might not be in here. Boy, I'm trying to get the exact wording, but, and Renee might be able to help me with this if she's on and
It's not.
available. She's not. It's basically the point at which, I'm trying to get to that personal, objection of a parent to put it into that same section on the mask wearing, because then it delineates that piece out of like, you know, there's three exemptions I think that I'm hearing from you as a group. One that's medical, one that's developmental, and one that's based on the parent's beliefs.
Mhm. Personal convictions.
Personal convictions, that's the words I
Yeah.
was looking for,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Parental personal convictions, not student, you know, I still think it should be an adult that's deciding whether the mask should be worn or not. like not the kid, right? That the parent should decide for their kid, whatever. But some adult should have that. And if it's against the personal conviction of the adult, there may be an exemption to the face covering. Otherwise, we're telling you, you have to do this.
So I think that would actually be the language that we have in the request for opt-out.
Right.
The second
It
sentence.
would be what you were looking for an opt-out anyway.
It's also in line 7 of that document.
Yeah, I was
that you were-
trying
I
to
know you're
find
trying
where
to
it
find
was,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yeah, there
like,
it is. Very nice.
is that where I think we all of us as a board can say we think that these are the 3 issues that we would maybe consider, like rationale for people to say I don't want to do this because.
That'd be valid for me.
You know, yes, but, you know, we are supposed to be student-centered. And we know that this has caused severe developmental issues with our kids, the shutdowns and the masks. And set our kids way back. Do we really want to go there with not taking the masks out of the list of things that we're going to force our kids to do in a pandemic?
So here's where I'm coming at it from as a standpoint, right? I'm coming at it from these angles. One, I want to strike a balance between the public good and the good of the individual, right? 2, I want to look at it as to a policy is only as good as how you can react from what has happened and progress for the future. We don't know, like David said, we don't know what mass technology might look like 2 years from now or 3 years from now. We know what mass technology and what happened, but I don't even know I'm not a medical provider. I don't work in masks. I don't know what changes they've made in masking even now for another virus that may show up tomorrow, right? And I don't want to take away a tool that might be useful if the current research and everything else says it is and it's good and we're developing a plan based on what might have happened in the past or even during the time of the Spanish flu. Like, I want to make sure that we allow ourselves to have, and that wasn't a jab at what you said. I'm just saying.
You're just, that's how the conversation flowed. I didn't take it any
Right,
sort of
thank
way.
you. I appreciate that because I just don't want people to think I'm taking personal jabs because I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I want us to try to balance the good of all with the good of the individual, right? Allowing individual freedoms, but also protecting everybody to the fullest extent that we can. And I want us to have a policy that allows us to take in the most current information at the time, not based it off of things that happened, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 100 years ago, right? That's what I'm trying to strike a balance in as we write this policy so that we can act with as much effort as we can at that point in time. And I think if we put that in, that balance between the right for the good and the right for the individual seems to be more in balance then, right? We're not saying you're doing it no matter what. We're opting 3 things out that are very important things: your health, your developmental stages, and just your own personal convictions, right? Those are opt-outs that you can have. Otherwise, we're asking everybody else to mask, right? Or whatever else it is we're doing for PPE reasons, right? That we may have. But we're also leaving it open with having a plan go to the board for the board to consider any current information at that time that we have to implement that as that. I think that makes a good solid approach, and I think covers most of all of your concerns that I'm hearing so far.
I do think that covers most of our concerns. I completely hear what you're saying, Lori, about, I guess you could call it the appeal to authority issue that we saw in 2020 and 2021. Not with any one in particular, I'll say, to keep it general. I definitely hear where you're coming from there, and I think that you are correct in your concerns. The hesitation that I have is I can see a circumstance not where making kids wear masks for 8 hours a day for 2.5 years is beneficial ultimately, especially with all of the things that we've talked about. But I can see circumstances where wearing masks might be a legitimate use of personal protective equipment. Not necessarily the cloth ones that let everything through, but N95s and things like that. So I know that there are circumstances where it may be legitimate to do so. So what I'm saying is, while I agree with you very strongly, and I'm concerned about personal conviction issues, and I'm concerned about health issues and psychological development issues, I want to find a way that we can craft this policy so that it also reflects the legitimacy of having to respond to such events, if that makes sense. So I'd be
I'm not
happy.
sure what you're saying, but okay.
So
Can you propose something more specific?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking, along with the other changes that we've discussed,
In
in 8450,
8450, okay.
along with the other changes we've discussed, specifying that it is the board that approves and ultimately decides these things, that there is a parental rights element with personal conviction, and that there's a developmental and a health-related element to exemptions. That we also have the removal of the specificity of the PPE, because there could be a time in the future, like we were talking about earlier, where it's not a face mask issue, but it's something else, and it's a similar situation. It just doesn't happen to be face masks, but it happens to be something else. I would think that the next time something like that happens, if it happens again, which things tend to go around and around in circles, the next time something like that happens, it's probably not going to be face masks. It's probably going to be something else that people end up utilizing that there are going to be problems with. There was a point in time when people were, really, really into drinking morphine so that they could cure their cough. There's always going to be people trying to respond to health conditions and responding with, let's be kind and say, suboptimal solutions.
So when you changing a policy versus approving, say, a plan put together by the superintendent, mechanically, what does that look like timeline-wise? Can you approve the plan in just one meeting, rather than when you change a
Yes.
policy, you have to go?
Matter of fact, that's why many of your policies say, here's the policy. And we're going to direct the administration to write guidelines on that follow that policy, right? That we then can approve of, because it makes it a place for us to act quicker, and you can change administrative guidelines easier than you can a policy.
Can we strengthen the, somehow strengthen the language around masking our children, so that it's clear that until the board chooses to change their minds on this, that masking is only an option that the board would ever have to approve?
So I would say we should do that for all PPE. I don't think it should be something that just at the drop of a hat
Okay.
can be decided.
And not just PPE, the whole plan in general,
Mhm.
which will come with things like PPE and other procedural things, compliance issues that you would like us to deal with. Because you want to make sure that, again, you have the broadest authority available to you, right? We can go down I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is like, don't look at me as I'm speaking against what you're asking for. What I'm saying is, I hear what you're saying, but I want to also try to give you the broadest ability to tackle any issue within your authority. I don't want you to curtail your own authority on this one topic.
Okay, so can we strike face coverings from the such as list?
I would say
Okay.
strike the whole such as list.
I would say strike the parenthetical, right?
Yeah.
We just talk about PPE as PPE,
Sure.
right?
Sure, and then add in the line that we added in on the previous policy, that subject to approval of the board.
And the one that says that you may be exempt, right?
Individuals with a valid reason for not wearing PPE
Yes.
may be exempted from this requirement as determined by the superintendent with final approval of the school board.
Yes, for instance, I'm not gonna make you wear latex gloves if you have a latex glove allergy,
Right,
right? Like, I think having it prudent in there that says we're gonna exempt you from PPE, why just have masking? I guess is what I'm getting at.
and then.
If you have a medical reason, a developmental reason, or a personal like conviction, yeah, I don't want to use the word bias, I want to use the word conviction.
So adding in the parent opt-out as well.
Yes.
Well, yes, I mean, the parental,
Okay.
personal conviction
I'm fine with
is the opt-out, basically. I
that.
mean,
Well, I think it needs to be said in policy that the parents can opt out of this.
that's what it says. It says
Okay,
that
but-
based on parental personal conviction.
Wait, that you're putting it in.
That's the wording we're gonna use. That means
Okay.
opt-out.
Yeah.
Right?
Take it.
So what you've done is give yourself flexibility.
Yeah, that's what I like to
Yeah.
do with policies. I like to, I've learned a lot from our attorney, where we can give ourselves the greatest amount of flexibility, right? And again, this strikes a pose between the macro view of public health for everyone and the micro view of how that anticipates me, right? And how what rights I have as an individual versus the rights of everybody that you're gonna maybe put this place in. And it gives us the flexibility for future plan development to make sure that the board has that in there. The one other thing that I would add to the plan development piece is that, states the obvious, but we always do this in policy, which is no plan or any such plan will be subject to any like law or jurisdiction, whatever. And I can work with our attorney to make sure that that wording from other policies is put into this one. But we certainly don't want to have a plan or a policy that doesn't conform to law.
Mhm.
Right? And so we want to make sure that any plan we have comports to law or those who have legal authority over a school district.
Yeah, I think that would be the best route with this policy, with what it's talking about in that sense. And again, so this is a first read option, so it's not like it goes to the board in a couple of weeks, we vote on it and that's
We'll
it.
get a chance to look at the wording.
Yeah,
You
so
will, absolutely.
we will have some updates. We would have some updates and revisions on this when it goes to the board at the end of this month.
That
So-
sound good?
To reiterate what I heard, and then Jared jump in. I heard add in the parental rights option of personal conviction, specify that the board shall determine the use of PPE and have final approval on exemptions from the use of PPE.
No, I wouldn't say the use of PPE. You're gonna have the approval of a plan.
Yeah.
Right? That plan will include PPE usage
Yeah.
or not usage, but I don't want to give you maximum authority. If you say it that you're gonna do PPE, that just tells me you're not gonna approve the rest of the plan. You only care about. the
Sure, I see what
PPE
you're
portion.
saying, yeah. Yeah, okay, board shall determine a plan, and then the board shall have final approval on exemptions under policy 8450. And then adjusting the language of disciplinary action to sent home or something of that nature. So if you guys can add that in, and then we'll have that come to the board for first read, not for final approval, but for first read in August. We'll be able to take a look at that. And then we can always talk about it next month at this meeting if we would like to, after those updates are made. All right, any other thoughts on the 8,000 group? Hearing nothing, all right. We're gonna move on to new major revisions, none. Moving on to future agenda planning. Any future agenda items that anyone would like to see?
So we will have a future agenda item, I believe, in September, when our next meeting is. We're going to have Neola come and just talk about and work through with us the first go around of updates. Okay, we've got our plan book done. Neola will send us biannually, twice a year, updates that they've made. Right? Those will come with, here's the policies we've touched. And in these policies are highlighted sections. That's the wording that we are suggesting you put in, or are giving you choice on wording to put in. You have to go through those, read the highlights and say, do we care about adding this or not adding this, or subtracting this or not subtracting this? And they give us choose your own adventure if there are choices that they are understanding as popular choices that conform, right?
Mhm.
Since our development process started till our end, there have been 3 to 4, I say 3 to 4 because there's actually been 4 updates, but one he pushed through in enough time for us to react to in real time, right? So there's about 3 updates that we have to go through. So the first one's gonna be pretty heavy, and then after that, it'll get, more of a manageable workload. But that one, I think we should schedule for September.
Okay.
Is to do that, because then even our updated book is the most updated it can be because we've gone through all of their updates, right? And work through that. We will still continue to work on administrative guidelines, right? For some of the major ones that we need to have. We know that we need to have some administrative guidelines more around the controversial issues in the classroom, right? As a piece. What were the other ones that we had? I know curriculum is going through a couple of administrative guidelines. Just can't think of them off the top of my head. But we have a list. We have a list of like more of your hot topic or ones that need to be administrative guidelines quicker than some other ones.
Sure.
We'll start working on those. I just don't have the list
Okay.
in my head and right in front of me. So
Yeah, that sounds good.
but those are what I know to be future agenda items.
Okay, cool. Get them out for future or for early viewing when you do have them. But yeah,
Right.
that sounds great. Thanks. Anything else anyone would like to see in September? If you don't have anything, you can always email me and Jared, and I'm happy to put. Oh yeah.
I have made a contact with that prior board member. They sent me some dates. I haven't responded yet to when they're available, but it looks like they're going to be available end of the month to start talking about grading. And some of what they wanted to, because they were going to sponsor the grading policy. I just want to have like headlines as to like, what are those, right? Craig is actually going to go through his prior emails too, as chair of the committee. I'm going to try to go back to my prior emails because then even if that meeting falls through, we at least know where to start.
Okay.
And look for it. But
Okay. Grading policy notes.
I just shared like what were the things that you wanted to see within that, and I said we can either meet or you can send them to me. She sent me some meeting dates, so I'm assuming that she's looking to meet.
Sure.
So when I have that, I will bring that to the chair and say, here's the things that we're wanting to talk about. Which of those do you want to address? And we'll move forward.
Okay, good. Well, that leads us into past action items. That's one past action item we have an update on. We have policies 2131 and 2132, as well as, that are referenced in 1110. Is that also included in the conversation that you had with a former board member?
I have to get that in front of my eyes.
It's the first bullet point.
Yeah, let me get there. I was on a whole different page. Okay, so policy 231, outcome goals, expectations, and 2132, educational process goals. It says Dr. Burke to reach out to former board member. Yep, so that's the one that I reached out to, former board member.
Yeah.
We'll bring those forward to you. So that's that one.
Yep.
The next one, Dr. Burke reach out to the former board member. Same, I mean,
Same thing.
those two mean the same thing to me, those first two bullet points.
Yeah, those are the collection
Yep.
of policies that you were working on previously.
Yep. The next bullet point, pull policy 2522, library and media centers out to have more discussion. Pull a subcommittee meeting. That one, I believe, Jason, once our library media specialists get back,
Mhm.
is going to pull and,
Okay.
and work on and work through. So as teachers come back, including our library media center teachers, they will pull that out and have more discussion. And then the director of curriculum instruction, Jenny Borst, to work on formatting changes to the draft course template. That's ongoing. She
Yep.
will, once she gets to a point of working through that with your committee, right? I believe your committee, Ed Services, will have an update for policy. Is that right?
That's correct. We talked about it Tuesday.
Mhm.
Okay. And then 5780 student parental rights. We brought that back. We went through the information and we discussed it more thoroughly now because it was like there were a lot of changes to try to
Oh, yeah.
even say, we're gonna go first read on this. So
Yeah.
bringing it back to the committee was the smart move.
Mhm. And now we're through with that, so that along with 2240 and the 8,000 group are gonna be going for first read with the revisions that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so I think off of this past list that we can take off
Mhm.
is the 5780, right?
Mhm.
I think we can amend this last bullet point, Director of Curriculum Instruction, right? To say that we're expecting an update from Ed Services on draft course change templates,
Mhm.
right? And then 50 or 2522, we can leave on there,
Mhm.
right? And the first two, we can consolidate it to one or the other because they both mean the same thing. I'm just going to work with that prior board member who is sponsoring possible changes to grading and assessment practices. And once I get that information, I will share it with the chair.
Okay, sounds great. Any other action items then that we have there?
I'll be going, but we just want to make sure we add David insight to the policy review committee members.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's a good action
moving,
item.
moving forward. Does that happen after the first general board meeting that he attends?
Yes.
Or does it happen before the first general board meeting he
So
attends?
it actually happens after he's taken the oath. So.
Okay, so you would technically be a member
He
now?
just took the oath.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, he's yes.
Okay, there you go. Okay, yeah, well, your name will be on there in the future and possibly even a name
That's
tag.
good. I wasn't gonna show up otherwise.
Well, I'm glad you did.
No, just kidding.
Thanks for sitting in. All right, any other action items that we have there? I don't know if we want to go through.
This is not an action item, but didn't you mention bullying in our Tuesday meeting?
Yes.
Ed Services though?
Yes, so I will get that to you. I'll send you a link to that. So that was second read, so that was finalized, correct? The bullying was second read, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually in the policy manual now, but I'll send you a link
It's
to
already
it.
gone through this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to look it over, like I said, it's generally been the practice of the board to not go back and like rework policies once they've been done. But if you're new on the board and you're like, oh, this is something I care about, I want to take a look at it. Unless you're telling us, hey, throw the whole thing out and write it from scratch. I mean, feel free to look at stuff and say, hey, I have these points that I'd like to discuss at policy. Can we bring that forward? I'm always happy to
Yeah.
bring something up,
Wanna-
especially now that the policy meetings are this level of
I know,
workload. It's a
I
lot
was- I
nicer.
was impressed.
They're getting back down to manageable again,
Mhm.
or closer to manageable.
Yeah.
Like I said, September is gonna be a little bit more of a lengthy meeting because we'll have all of those reiterations to go through, but after that, it will get to a very manageable schedule. The other thing that I want to talk about is I'm assuming that now that we're done with the major project where we're meeting monthly, we'll go back to the regular bi-monthly meeting schedule. And if we do, I'd like to change the agenda to have, like, at the beginning of that meeting, have it be a review of the action steps first. Because if we don't refresh ourselves where we were, the danger in policy work is that everybody starts over from scratch every other month. And we don't want to get into that because we will be in that place where, and I've said this always, like, we've got really great policies. Don't make a wonderful policy the enemy of a really great policy, right? Because that's why we have like a good updated policy book that has reviews that happen biannually from an outside organization, plus the stuff that we do. Otherwise, we will never get anything else done. And I will have up to three meetings in 1 month, every month, to do policy work. Because there were, I think, a couple of months where we had close to three, or at least within a 6-week period, there was 3 meetings. You know, to get the really hard work that we did done. I think we're getting to a point where we can put that on the shelf and say we did a really great job, right? And get back to a bi-monthly, but in that bi-monthly, making sure that we also do a review of what we talked about 2 months ago, so that we don't get ourselves back into a habit of, well, these are the policies. I'm going to reread the whole thing and start from scratch again. I think we start from, here's what we are here to address on that, not the whole thing again.
Do we also bring forward for consideration procedurally the past way that we tried to operate with the sponsorship?
Yeah, I think when it gets to like having ones that aren't on our review process, because what's going to happen is we're going to have a biannual review process where they're going to say, here's the suggested changes, right? Those will come along with also anything that is like new hot topic from our legal that says, hey, you may want to look at this one, because Neola may not have looked at that yet, but we need to react to it quicker than the people we have who help us, right? So you're going to have those things. You're going to have a review of what they've done, or a review of the legal suggestions. And those are going to take you 2 or 3 meetings to finalize. And then you're going to get another batch 6 months from that one. And those are going to take, if there's something else that hops up in between there as like something that we really want to change, that should come from a sponsorship level, Craig, like we used to do before, where a board member would say, hey, I was looking at policies, or what caused me to look at the policy is I had this complaint from a parent or a concern from, a community member or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought the policy forward. I think we need to look at this again in more detail. Like, I think from our board standpoint, we should look at this closer. I'd like to sponsor this. Then we put that on the agenda as well.
Yes.
So not only do we have our legal team, the people we pay, but then you guys have a way of saying, this is important work, right? And then we put it on there.
And any board member can, I would say,
Sponsor, right,
as far as being the chair at least, I'd be happy to hear from any board member, whether or not they're on the committee, with any policy that they're interested in updating or revising when that happens.
We've even had non-board members. I don't know if we have here, but at my last school district, we had even just a concerned citizen who said, hey, I'm really worried about a policy you have. This is it. Are you interested in looking at that with me? I'd be happy to sponsor it. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a board member. It could be a citizen or a teacher or a parent. If the committee thinks, yeah, that's something we'd be interested in, go forth, do the work with the administration, come together and bring that forward to us. As thoughts, we'd be happy to hear them. So I wouldn't just limit it to board members necessarily. But that's up to you guys. You can say board members if you want, but I've had plenty of success doing it with anybody who wants to bring a question of our policies forward, right, to sponsor it.
Yeah.
I'll bring forward some of the past verbiage I think we utilized in that process that we try to explain the process, but in a nutshell, I think it came before the committee, the next meeting, if somebody was interested in sponsoring, and then they would kind of lay out the case why the committee might want to take on further revisions on the policy, and then the committee would decide whether or not they would like to move forward with any future work on a particular policy. And I think that was that worked out pretty well, because if it wasn't, if it didn't strike the, will of the committee to move forward with it, then it just, you're just one person that has an issue at this point in time. We wouldn't want to let that hinder further work of the committee.
The potential issue being that you could have 30 people come forward with different policies
Right.
all at the same time.
Right, and say,
Yeah.
I wanna sponsor this.
It
I
would,
wanna sponsor
yeah, I mean, it would be like anything else. The policy would be put on the agenda as an item to be considered, along with either the guest speaker or the board member or whoever is interested. They would be able to speak on it, and then the committee would say, let's move this forward for further discussion at the next meeting, or let's not do that. So, yeah, for sure. That sounds fine to me. I mean, and that's kind of how we have operated as far as I've observed it. And that'll be a lot easier, again, with the not insanely high workload of policies that we've been going through for the last 2 years. Yeah, that's that. Lynn, do you have, I don't think it was too many changes. Do you have a list of those as action items, or do you just want to say, let's move these forward? Moving forward with the requested changes.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Too. Since September is not a normal month on, should we set a date, or do you want me to send out?
Oh, I meant October. Did I say September? Our next meeting? I meant October.
So we are not meeting in September.
Right, our next meeting would be October, for the calendar.
Right.
And I'm assuming that we can get back to a regular meeting schedule.
So the only reason that I would hesitate on that is because last month we had a meeting where technically none of the content went to the board for first read. So I would say let's still get a September meeting on the books, because we're going to have a number of policies at the August board meeting, which are there for first read. If those are policies that people want to have further discussion about, it'll be good for us to have a standing meeting appointment. And then we can always say, hey, we're actually going to postpone this meeting until a later date if we don't need to. Does that make sense?
You're the chair.
Yeah,
I defer to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You see what I'm saying with that? Okay, yeah. So I would say let's still set up September meetings. And then moving forward, we'll start to scale it back. All right, if there's no further thoughts, we'll adjourn the meeting at 6:49 PM.
Couldn't get it to an hour, Sam. We're there.
You know me, I'm a bloviator.
Carl doesn't work there.
Thank you guys. This is my first time here, but it was really encouraging to see the level of respect, how you guys communicate with one another. And I felt you were really clear and really honoring to one another, and the conversation was intelligent, and it's clear you guys all are here because you care a lot. So thank you for serving our children in our community. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe I know you. I'm Lori Hoffman.
You should join. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And I'm a big, I'm all about research, so thank you for caring enough to really look into that. Not a lot of
Thank you,
people.
guys. I like